Okay, this is now Tower Lesson 73, and I'm late, but the crack in the wall has been sealed on the outside, and it's been sealed on the inside, and the broken bricks have been replaced, but there's still a hole in the wall in the basement room, which I normally use, and somebody's going to come and seal it up and plaster, and it's not quite ready yet. So I'm upstairs, and I have my agenda for the day. So Scorpio, a card. This is about astrology. Somebody asked about astrology and the tarot and combining them. And I have touched on this before, but I wanted to do something today about court cards and astrology. But so I have this diagram. This is a fence, right? I think you can recognize that's a fence. And here, over on one side of the fence, we've got astrology. And here we've got the tarot. And so, you know the expression, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. So you're here with the tarot, and you're looking across and you're seeing astrology, and it looks so good. It looks like it might be the answer to everything, or that if you could only get some astrology, it would help you with your tarot reading. And I want to say it won't and don't, and it's not going to make it any better. And this is partly because if you know about in southern Ontario where I live, the summers are usually warm and hot, and the grass dies. But when there's a rainstorm one day, the grass is back to being really green the next day. And this is because the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it. So later, after we talk about astrology, I'm going to talk about how you can water the side of the fence where you already are with the tarot and turn the tarot green and fertile and useful and full rather than empty, which is what astrology is like nowadays, generally speaking. So I happened to, a while ago, well, not that long ago, a month maybe, somebody sent me a link to read an article about Scorpio, because the sun was in Scorpio. So I read bits and pieces, and so the article indicated Scorpios are liars, backstabbers, and traitors. That's what they've got the reputation for being. They always have, and no matter where you go or what time period you're in, Scorpio has a bad reputation. So liars, backstabbers, traitors, among other things. So if you've got a card, let's say you've got a court card, or I can't find one here. Let's say you've got a card that represents Scorpio, and you tell the person, let's say somebody wants to know, am I going to get married, or who am I going to marry? And there's a Scorpio influence. What are you going to tell the person? Are you going to tell them that you're going to marry somebody who's a liar, who's a backstabber and a traitor? Which means, if you're going to talk about Scorpio in itself or connected with a card, what else are you going to tell the person? Are you going to say, you're going to be dealing with Scorpio, so you can't believe most of what they tell you, or you really need to take extra steps to protect yourself because Scorpio is dangerous and you're going to be subject to a dangerous situation. So if you're going to talk about the sign of the zodiac, partly you need to know what the nature of the sign is actually, and then once you know what the nature of the sign is, you need to amplify it a bit, or extend it a bit, or explain it a bit to help the questioner understand what they're going to be dealing with that particular sign of the zodiac. And it gets really complicated. So I've got this, I did this before with, I forget which sign, but let's say you've got Leo, right? Leo's the king. And so there are 30 degrees in the sign Leo. And the first 10 degrees is Leo. The second 10 degrees is Sagittarius. And the third 10 degrees is Aries. Decanates are called. So Leo's the king. So the beginning of Leo is the king who is a king. They're regal, they're dignified, and they're always on stage, right? Because that's Leo. But the middle of the sign is Leo with Sagittarius, the old philosopher. So in the middle of this, a Leo born in the middle of the sign is a Leo, but they're also a philosopher. So they're more casual, they're older, they're more lackadaisical maybe than they are at the beginning, because here they're regal, here they're lackadaisical. And then if you're at the born at the end of Leo, you're dealing with Aries, the child. So a Leo born at the end of the sign is going to be subject to temper tantrums, because children, you know, have temper tantrums, among other things. Also, children are incredibly inquisitive, and they'll try things, and so they won't give up. And Aries is a sign of the pioneer as well. So Napoleon Bonaparte had the sun in this part of the zodiac, and he explored and he did amazing things. So if a card comes up and you reading a card start talking about Leo, what are you going to say that's not empty? You say you're going to meet this Leo person, but what kind of person is at the beginning, the middle, the end? Because these are all, even though they're all Leos, they're all very different characteristics, and we can expect different behavior and different actions from somebody born in the beginning, the middle, or the end of the sign. And this applies for every sign of the zodiac. So if you say to somebody you're going to meet a Leo, that's kind of empty. Because what kind of Leo are you talking about? Is it valuable? Is it useful to know you're going to deal with a Leo, when really maybe you're dealing with a Leo at the end of the sign, and it's the childlike, childish side of the Leo that's going to be more obvious? Or are you dealing with a Leo at the beginning of the sign who's more dignified, we can say, because it's a Leo decanate of Leo? So if you want to incorporate astrology and the tarot, it's really very difficult, and really they ought to be kept separate. So I had four cards out here. I've got a knight, I've got different signs, suits rather. I've got a knight, a queen, I've got a king here, and a page. Right, so one of the things I wrote down is there are 12 signs of the zodiac. Right, we know this. But there are 16 court cards. So 12 is not the same as 16. So if you want to relate signs of the zodiac with court cards, what are you going to leave out? Presumably the king and the queen go together. You have to keep them. But are you going to drop the knight? Knights represent messengers. They represent young men, we can say. But is the knight going to be part of the royal family? Or is it the page? Do we drop the page? Because pages are children and young people and inexperienced individuals. But is a page, who in a lot of ways is a servant, is a page part of the royal family? And you can argue no. And the knight is not a member of the royal family either. So really, if you're looking at court cards, you've only got 2 kings or 4 kings and 4 queens. So what signs are you going to leave out? It doesn't work. And I think that if you have to bend over backwards to make it fit, it's not right. It's not legitimate. So don't do it. So if you go back to the fence here, right, that's astrology. So leave astrology to the side for the moment. Let's focus on the tarot. So you may not know about Scorpio and Leo and the signs of the zodiac, but you know what a king is like. So something that you might find useful: pages and queens are feminine or female and respond to circumstances. Kings and knights are masculine and go out and make things happen. That's a general way of looking at a knight and a king. Right, so With the King of Batons, Batons represents enterprise and energy. So with the King of Batons, you go out and you're energetic, you're a pioneer, you make things happen, you have good ideas and suggestions, you get people moving, you get them going. Whereas if it's a knight, it's somebody younger. But, okay, we've got the Knight of Pentacles here. So somebody who's maybe figuring out what they care about because it's Pentacles. So whereas the King of Pentacles knows what he knows what he likes. With the Knight, you're still learning, or you're in the point, the place where you're still learning. So this could be, am I going to get a promotion? And the answer is the Knight of Pentacles. Yes, you will, but it's going to take you a little bit of time to get the hang of the new job, because it's a Knight and not a King of Pentacles. And so you personally could have said that because you know what knights are like, you know what kings are like. But if I start talking about the nature of Virgo, what can you add to it? What can you do with it? Probably not a lot. So we can say knights grow up to be kings, pages grow up to be queens. So if we've got so kings and queens are in charge, and so a king represents somebody in charge. So it could be the father in the family or the mother in the family if she's the one who makes the decisions. It could be the head of a condo, homeowners association. It could be the head of a department or the principal of a school. But it could also be the head of the history department or the head of the science department, because they're still in charge. And the same for a queen. It can be a woman who is in that same authoritative position. But the difference between masculine and feminine isn't one is better than the other. Masculine signs go out and do what they want, or they're more willing to control other people, maybe for their own good, but they're willing to control other people, whereas queens are more likely to take into account people's feelings or people's understanding, or to be more forgiving or more understanding of the kind of state of mind that the person is in at the time of being told to do something, for instance. Whereas a page is a young person. Pages are inexperienced. So the page might want to be in control, but doesn't have the experience yet. So you know about kings and queens. You know that the person's in charge. And we know that if the cat battens at the king is upside down, they want to be in charge, but they can't handle it because it's upside down. Or they don't want to be in charge. They've been put in a position where somebody has to make the decision, and they reluctantly make the decision, but they don't really want to because the king is upside down. And that goes for the queen as well. So the queen upside down is somebody who maybe, I'm trying to think of a question here, maybe they don't quite want to decide, or we can look at the suit as well, cups being emotion. Maybe with the Queen of Pentacles or the Queen of Cups reversed, her emotions or this person's emotions get in the way and make them unable or unwilling to make a decision. So you're taking the idea of cups, which represents emotion, and you're taking the idea of a queen who ought to be able to give orders sensitively, but the card's upside down, so it's not working, or part of it isn't working. Either they don't want to make the decision or the emotions get in the way. And so if you water your side of the fence and look at kings, you know about kings. We've got an idea of what a king is like. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. You know, so the king can represent somebody who receives public acclaim and has an admirable reputation in a particular area, right? So you could be the king of the king of anything can be somebody in your neighborhood that everybody looks up to, or that people defer to or people respect. And there's good reason for it, because the king is upright. Whereas if it's upside down, it can be somebody that people grudgingly do as they are told, but they don't really like it because the king is upside down. And maybe the king behaves badly and expects to get away with it. So depending on the question, you know what kings and queens are like and what they can do. And you've got a couple of ideas for knights as messengers and young men, pages as being young people and inexperienced individuals who want to grow up to be queens. They don't want to grow up to be kings. They want to grow up to be queens who respond to circumstances. Whereas kings go out and control. Okay, so I think it was Moran Software who asked about astrology and the tarot. So that's partly for him, but it's for anybody watching who has an interest in astrology, and should you or should you not try to combine the two. And I think the simple answer is don't, because it leads to emptiness. Whereas cultivating your side of the fence, you'll end up, or you'll gradually and over time develop a much deeper and better understanding of the tarot itself, rather than spread yourself thin and try to reach over to the other side of the fence and take something that really is a lot of work. Okay, so that was it for today. Let me just, because I put these 1, 2, 3, 4 together, I'll separate them a bit. And then, so today is, I don't know when this is going up, but I'll be back in a few days. Ideally, the basement will be fixed, and I can be back there and get more into regular routine again. Otherwise, I will be back in a few days. Okay, thanks for watching and have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.